Here's a thought that should bother you a little. To lie, you need something most animals don't have. The ability to know what someone else is thinking, and then deliberately plant something false in there. Stop and consider how strange that is. Lying isn't a moral problem. It's a superpower. And figuring out when we first got it tells us almost everything about who we are. This is the story of the oldest skill nobody wants to admit they're proud of. Not fire, not tools, not language even, lying. The deliberate, calculated act of making another mind believe something that isn't true. And here's the part nobody tells you. The ability to lie isn't a glitch in human nature. It might be the single clearest sign that human nature ever switched on at all. Because to deceive someone, really deceive them, you have to do something almost no other creature on Earth can do. You have to climb inside their head. Let's start there. With the head, there's a concept in psychology called theory of mind. It sounds academic and cold, but it's one of the most extraordinary things your brain does, and you do it constantly, without ever noticing. Theory of mind is the ability to understand that other people have their own thoughts, their own beliefs, their own knowledge that is separate from yours. It's the understanding that what's in your head and what's in someone else's head are not the same thing. That sounds obvious. It is not obvious. It is one of the rarest cognitive abilities in the entire animal kingdom. When you walk into a room and you know that your friend doesn't know about the surprise party, that's theory of mind. When you realize someone is about to embarrass themselves because they're missing one piece of information, that's theory of mind. When you choose your words carefully because you know how they'll land on a specific person, that's theory of mind. You are running a live simulation of another human being's inner world inside your own skull. And here's why that matters for lying. You cannot lie to someone unless you first understand that they have a mind that can be wrong. You have to know that they believe something. You have to know that you can change what they believe. And you have to want to. A lie is theory of mind weaponized. It is the moment you take your model of another person's mind and you deliberately corrupt it for your own benefit. So the question of when humans started lying isn't really a question about morality at all. It's a question about when we developed the machinery to model other minds. And that machinery is one of the defining features of being human. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Let's talk about animals. Because the popular idea is that deception is everywhere in nature. And that's only half true. Nature is full of trickery. An octopus changes color to vanish against a rock. A harmless snake evolves the same markings as a venomous one. A bird drags its wing along the ground, faking an injury to lure a predator away from its nest. These are deceptions in a sense, but they're not lies. Not the way we mean it. The octopus isn't thinking about what the shark believes. The snake didn't decide to look dangerous. That bird with the broken wing act is running an instinct, a behavior burned into it. By evolution over millions of years. It works, but there's nobody home making a choice. It's deception without a deceiver. The trick is in the genes, not in the mind. So where's the line? The line is intention. The line is knowing. And when researchers went looking for animals that cross that line, that deceive on purpose, with an understanding of what another mind believes, the list got very short, very fast. And almost everything on it is a primate. Chimpanzees are the headline act. In study after study, chimps have shown behavior that's genuinely hard to explain as anything other than deliberate deception. A low-ranking chimp who finds food will sometimes wait, staying silent, hiding it until the dominant male looks away, because the chimp seems to understand that what the dominant male sees determines what he knows. There are documented cases of chimps leading rivals in the wrong direction, away from hidden food, then doubling back alone. There are chimps who suppress the food call, the excited sound they normally can't help making, specifically when staying quiet serves them better. That suppression is the tell. That's not instinct. Instinct is the call coming out. Overriding the call, choosing silence because of what? A rival might learn. That's a mind doing the math. Gorillas have done it. Orangutans have done it. There's a famous case of a captive gorilla who broke something, and when confronted, pointed at a smaller companion. Whether that's true blame shifting or something simpler is genuinely debated, but the fact that it's even debatable tells you something. We're in the neighborhood of deception here. The lights are on. But here's the thing. Even in our closest relatives, even in chimpanzees, who share almost 99% of our DNA, deception is rare, clumsy, and limited. It happens in flashes. It's about food and rank and the immediate moment. No chimp has ever told a story. No chimp has ever lied about something that happened yesterday, or something that might happen next year, or something that never happened at all. That gap between what a chimp can do and what a 4-year-old human can do is one of the most important gaps in the entire story of our species. And it's the gap we have to cross to understand when lying really began. So let's cross it. Let's talk about children. Because if you want to watch the human capacity for deception switch on in real time, you don't dig through fossils. You watch a toddler. Here's something that should genuinely amaze you. By the time a human child is around 4 years old, they can lie, convincingly, strategically, and nobody taught them how. There's no class. There's no lesson where a parent sits a child down and explains the mechanics of deception. It simply appears the way a tooth pushes through on a developmental schedule, almost like clockwork. Psychologists have studied this for decades, and the timeline is remarkably consistent across cultures, across languages, across continents. Around age 2, children make their first crude attempts at denial. A toddler with chocolate smeared across their entire face will look you in the eye and say they didn't eat the chocolate. It's not a good lie. It's barely a lie at all. They haven't yet figured out that the evidence on their face contradicts the words in their mouth. They want it to be true, so they say it. That's wishful denial, not real deception. But then something changes. Between 3 and 4, the machinery comes online. Researchers use a clever setup, sometimes called the temptation resistance task. A child is left alone in a room and told not to peek at a toy behind them. A camera watches. Almost every child peeks. They can't help it. Then the adult comes back and asks, "Did you peek?" The 2-year-olds confess, or they're transparently bad at hiding it. But the 4-year-olds? The 4-year-olds lie. They say no, and the truly remarkable ones do something more. They construct a cover story. They pretend not to know what the toy is, even though a child who genuinely hadn't peeked might happily guess. They manage their own behavior to support the lie. They are, at 4 years old, running a model of the adult's mind and feeding it false information on purpose. Think about that for a second. Before they can read, before they can tie their shoes, before they can do basic arithmetic, the human brain has already mastered one of the most cognitively demanding social tasks that exists: deliberate, strategic deception of another conscious mind. And here's the part that reframes everything. Child psychologists do not see early lying as a warning sign. They see it as a milestone. A child who can lie is a child whose theory of mind is developing on schedule. The lie is evidence that the brain has figured out other people are separate, knowable, and changeable. In a strange and uncomfortable way, the first lie is a child's brain announcing that it has become fully, recognizably human. So if every human child develops this on a built-in schedule with no instruction, the same way they develop language, then we're not looking at a learned trick. We're looking at something deeper, something that comes standard, something written into the species. Which brings us to the real question, the hard one. If lying is built in, how far back does it go? And this is where we have to be honest about a problem. Lies don't fossilize. A stone tool survives for 3 million years because stone is nearly indestructible. A footprint can be preserved in volcanic ash. A skull can sit in the ground for 500,000 years and still tell us about the brain it once held. But a lie is a pattern of electricity in a brain that rotted away 100,000 years ago. It leaves no residue, no artifact, no layer in the soil. You cannot excavate a deception. So we can never find the first lie directly. There is no museum case with a little plaque that says, "Here is where someone first said something they knew wasn't true." That moment is gone, utterly and permanently. But, and this is the key, we can do something almost as good. We can find the fingerprints of the mind that was capable of it. Because the same cognitive machinery that lets you lie, that ability to model other minds, to imagine things that aren't real, to hold a false version of the world in your head, alongside the true one, that machinery leaves traces. Not the lie itself, but the kind of brain that could produce one. So let's go looking for that brain. Let's follow the fingerprints back. The first fingerprint is symbolic thought. And this one is huge. To lie, you have to be able to hold 2 versions of reality in your mind at once. The way things actually are and the way you want someone to believe they are. You have to be comfortable with the idea that a thing can stand for something it isn't. That's the same exact mental flexibility behind symbols. A symbol is a thing that represents another thing. A mark that means a word. An object that means an idea. A drawing that means an animal that isn't in the room. And when we look for the earliest evidence of symbolic thought, we find it deep. Much deeper than most people assume. In the Blombos cave on the southern coast of South Africa, archaeologists found pieces of ochre, a soft red stone, deliberately engraved with cross-hatched geometric patterns. These engravings are around 77,000 years old. Some finds at the site push past 100,000. Nobody knows exactly what the patterns meant, but that's almost the point. They meant something. Someone made a mark that stood for an idea. Someone's brain was already running the symbol software. In Spain, there are cave paintings that may predate modern humans entirely, possibly made by Neanderthals, dating back perhaps 64,000 years or more. Hand stencils, geometric shapes, marks made deep in the dark, by firelight, for reasons we will never fully recover. But again, the meaning isn't the point. The capacity is the point. A mind that can paint a symbol on a wall is a mind that understands one thing can stand for another, and a mind that understands that can lie. The second fingerprint is even more revealing: imagination. Specifically, the ability to talk about things that are not here, not now, and possibly not real. Linguists and anthropologists. I have a concept for this called displacement. It's the ability of human language to refer to things removed from the present moment. The mammoth we hunted last winter, the river 2 valleys over, the ancestors who are gone, the spirits who might be watching. Almost no other communication system on Earth can do this. A monkey's alarm call means danger. Here, now. It cannot mean there was danger yesterday, or there might be danger tomorrow, or imagine if there were danger. But human language swims in displacement. And here's the unavoidable consequence. The moment your language can describe something that is not happening in front of you, your language can describe something that is not true. Fiction and falsehood are born from the same ability. The brain that can tell a story about a hunt that hasn't happened yet is the exact same brain that can tell a lie about a hunt that never happened at all. A story is a lie we agree to believe. A lie is a story we're not supposed to catch. And we have very old evidence of humans telling stories. Not written, obviously, but encoded in the things stories leave behind. Burials are the clearest. When you find a body laid out with care, positioned deliberately, sprinkled with ochre, surrounded by objects, placed there on purpose, you're looking at people who believed in something they could not see. A journey after death, a world beyond this one, an idea. There are burials like this going back over 100,000 years. The site of Kafza in modern-day Israel holds remains, roughly 100,000 years old, buried with apparent intention. To bury someone for the sake of an idea about where they're going, you need a mind that can hold an invisible, unprovable world in place and treat it as real. That is imagination operating at full power. And imagination at full power is deception's twin. They are the same muscle, used for different ends. Now here's the question that should be sitting in the back of your mind. Does this mean lying is, 50,000 years old? 100,000? Older? And the honest answer pushes us further back than the cave paintings, further back than the burials, because all of those are products of a mind that was already fully equipped. They're not the beginning, they're the showroom. By the time someone is engraving ochre and burying their dead with ceremony, the underlying machine has been running for a long, long time. So let's follow it back to the machine itself. Back to the brain. The capacity for theory of mind, for modeling other minds, almost certainly didn't appear suddenly. It evolved gradually, under intense pressure, and we have a very good idea of what that pressure was. Other humans. There's an idea in evolutionary science sometimes called the social brain hypothesis, and sometimes, more bluntly, the Machiavellian intelligence hypothesis. The core claim is striking. The reason humans got so smart, the reason our brains ballooned to their absurd size, burning enormous amounts of energy to run, wasn't mainly to make better tools or find more food. It was to handle each other. Living in a group is a cognitive nightmare. You have to track who's allied with whom, who owes you a favor, who cheated you last season, who's rising in status and who's falling, who can be trusted, and who absolutely cannot. And critically, you have to manage how others see you, which means at times concealing your real intentions, presenting a version of yourself, and yes, sometimes deceiving. In a social world like that, the ability to model other minds isn't a luxury, it's survival. The human who could predict what a rival was planning, who could tell when an ally was being sincere, who could, when necessary, mislead a competitor. That human did better. They got more food, more mates, more protection, they passed on more genes, and the genes they passed on built brains even better. At the same game, deception didn't sit outside this process as some moral failing. Deception was one of the engines driving it. The arms race between deceiving and detecting deception, between the liar and the lie catcher, may have been one of the central forces that pushed human intelligence to its strange and lonely heights. We didn't get smart, in spite of lying. We may have partly gotten smart because of it. Think about what that means. The same brain that can compose a symphony, prove a theorem, write a poem that makes a stranger cry 1,000 years later. That brain was forged, in part by the need to outwit other members of its own species. The cathedral and the Khan were built by the same hands. So if you're asking when humans first started lying, the deepest answer is this. Lying, real lying, the deliberate manipulation of another mind almost certainly predates our species. The cognitive foundations were being laid hundreds of thousands of years before the first cave painting, hundreds of thousands of years before the first ceremonial burial. By the time anatomically modern humans appear, around 300,000 years ago, the equipment was already there. They could model minds. They could imagine. They could, without question, lie. which means there has never been a human being who could not lie. Lying isn't something we acquired. It's something we arrived with. And now I want to do the thing that always feels uncomfortable, which is to turn this around and point it at you. Because here's the part that the moral framing gets wrong. We're taught that lying is the enemy of connection, that honesty brings people together, and deception drives them apart. And in the big, important cases, that's true. The lies that betray, that exploit, that wound, those are real, and they do real damage. But the same machinery that lets you lie is the machinery that lets you be kind. When you tell a grieving friend that it's going to be okay, even though you don't know that, you're modeling their mind and shaping what they feel. When you tell a nervous child there are no monsters under the bed, you're saying something you can't actually prove in order to give them peace. When you smile and say you love the gift, when you tell someone they did great, when you keep a secret to protect someone you love, every single one of those is theory of mind in action. Every one of them involves managing another person's inner world. The capacity for deception and the capacity for compassion are not opposites. They are the same. Superpower, pointed in different directions. To lie to protect someone, you must first care enough to know what would hurt them. The con artist and the comforting friend are using the exact same circuitry. What separates them isn't the ability, it's the intention. And maybe that's the real answer hiding underneath the whole question. We didn't become human when we learned to tell the truth. Truth is easy. Truth is just describing what's in front of you. We became human when we gained the power to step into another mind and decide what to put there. That power can build trust or break it. It can comfort or it can exploit. It is the foundation of every story we've ever told, every kindness we've ever offered, and every betrayal we've ever suffered. The first human who ever lied wasn't a villain. They were a mind that had grown powerful enough to see another mind clearly and to choose what that other mind would believe. That's terrifying. And it's also, somehow, the most human thing there is. So here's my last question for you. The next time you tell a small, soft, harmless lie, the kind we all tell every single day, the "it's fine," the "I'm okay," the "it looks great on you," ask yourself what you're really doing. Are you deceiving someone? Or are you doing the oldest, strangest, most distinctly human thing of all? Reaching into another person's mind and gently, deliberately deciding to make their world a little kinder than the truth? Let me know in the comments. I genuinely want to hear it. Until then, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you soon.